All right, so we're here with episode 2 of this podcast. Still haven't figured out what to call it. I'm going to upload the audio versions to Spotify as well, so you don't have to watch the video if you don't want to. But we're just going to keep going with what we were doing with our last one. We're going to be doing draft grades. First off, it's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. If you're a mother watching this, obviously happy Mother's Day to you. Just to go off on, where would we be without our mothers? Let's be honest here. I know mine's the most supportive person in my life, and I thank her every day for what she does. So I hope you guys are thankful for your mothers, not just today, but for every day. I think it really means a lot to them as well to know that what they're doing isn't going unnoticed. And this piece of hair is gonna mess me up, but it's all good because we're doing this exactly how we're gonna do it. It's very much just gonna be a conversation. We're just gonna be talking, and we're gonna be talking about the NFC West today. Now, obviously, the NFC West, every division football, we got 4 teams, and we need to go over just how their draft went. And I think that's the best way to do this right now, and we'll keep going throughout this process and just kind of figuring out the best ways to complete these little podcasts that we're doing. Last one ran about 30 minutes, and it felt good. It was good to conversate, and I kind of knew these ones wouldn't be as popular on YouTube. They're more or less for me as well for you, but I don't know. I hope you guys are able to sit down, relax, and watch it. If you guys do enjoy these, of course, please leave a like, subscribe, turn those notifications on, all those different things on YouTube, because it really does help me out. And if you're listening on the audio version, same thing. Just share it with your friends, like the audio podcast and everything like that. It helps out a lot. But without further ado, we're pretty much going to be talking about MC West. And obviously, there's teams like the Rams and the Seahawks who don't really pick as much as the other teams. But the big notable selection here is going to be from the 49ers, and we're going to start off with the 49ers. So the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, right? We all knew they were taking a quarterback. Personally, I think Justin Fields would have been the best pick, but I digress. Trey Lance is a guy who started only, I think, 17 games in college, and he did not lose any of them. He was a winner in all of them, and that's something to take home. That's something that's very important to say. These guys not lost a college football game. Probably has not lost a football game in a long time, and that's really big. I think they had a really good draft here, and I think the thing with the Trey Lance thing is the conversation you have to have with what are we doing with Garoppolo now. Now, I'm in the camp that thinks Garoppolo's a good quarterback. He just can't stay healthy, right? He hasn't been able to stay completely healthy in his 3 years in San Francisco. I think it's been 3-4 years in San Francisco. And he's not a bad quarterback, but you can't keep going into games with C.J. Beathard or Nick Mullins as your quarterback because that's not who you're paying $25+ million to. You're paying that to Garoppolo. So I think the thing about Garoppolo right now is it's going to be hard to move his contract. That's going to be the hardest thing to do is what team is going to be able to have the cap space and the desire to have a guy like Jimmy G as their quarterback. And when you think about it in the NFL, most teams pretty much are covered in the quarterback department, even think about the teams that are taking quarterbacks this year. The Bears, right? The Bears have Dalton and Foles, which obviously need to upgrade, but they could have went into the season with Dalton and Foles, even with Trubisky, and they would have been okay. The Jags took Trevor, but they have Minshew. Minshew wasn't going to be horrible. If you had to go into the season with Minshew, I don't think you'd be mad about it. The Jets had Darnold, and they traded him away. So once they traded him away, they needed a quarterback, but before that, they didn't need a quarterback. The Broncos were thought to take a quarterback, but now they have Teddy B and Drew Lock. Again, a team that could use a quarterback, but would you really want Jimmy over those guys? Yes, but I don't know if you'd want that salary difference. So it kind of makes it whatever. Same thing with the Panthers. Panthers just got Darnold. So do they really want another quarterback? I don't think so. And I don't think Jimmy G is an upgrade over Darnold. Who else took a quarterback? The Patriots took a quarterback. They could have went into the season with Cam and been happy instead of Mac Jones. The Vikings took Kellen Mond in the second round. I'm taking Kirk over Jimmy G, I think, right now. At least because, again, the contract situations, everything. Unless you're able to flip Kirk for Jimmy, I think that would be a good move. But then again, you have Kellen Mond behind him. Trask just went to the Buccaneers, so you're not going to get Jimmy G to sit behind Brady. So really, there's not many teams. All the teams that needed a quarterback and took a quarterback in the draft really didn't need a quarterback. It's kind of a surplus in the league right now where you really need to be a very, very good quarterback to keep your job, man. You really do. And I think that's where the Niners looked at it. They said, listen, Jimmy G is a really good quarterback. He's got what we want in a quarterback, but I want to run my offense a little bit better. He got us to the Super Bowl. He's been hurt. I want to run my offense a little bit better. We have a younger team, right? You look at the team as a whole. Kittle obviously is the vet there. They have Trent Williams, who's older, but when you look at McGlinchey on the line, you got Ayuk and Debo as your 1 and 2, who are very young. You have now you have Trey Sermon as a running back, but you also have all these young guys who are just circulating. Wayne Gallman's there too. Mostert's obviously almost 30, but like all these young guys are circulating in the running back spot. It's a very younger team. They didn't sign Sherman back as far as I know. So it's like this team is still competing at a high level, but they're getting young as well. So why not get ahead of it and get a guy like Lance who Shanahan believes can run this offense the way he wants? And I think that's true. I mean, Lance is a guy who can be a 1,000-yard rusher from a quarterback spot. He really can do what he wants, and he's comparable to Dak, and I've seen a lot of people compare him to Dak, and I think it's a good comparison. I think that it's hard as if I was a fan of the Niners, it's hard to see the benefit of trading all those picks to move up to Lance unless Lance completely pulls out to be one of these better quarterbacks. But the thing is, Lance has to be better than Jones. He has to be better than Fields. I think he's got to be better than Wilson. I don't think he has to be better than Trevor, but I think he has to be the second best quarterback in this draft class to come out of this draft class for this to be a warranted move, because trading up all those picks was a big risk, and in reality, we saw the draft fell. They could have sat pretty and landed Fields most likely, or traded up a couple picks and landed Fields. So for them to trade all the way up to 3, it says a lot. It says a lot. So I think Trey Lance has to pan out. We won't know if it'll pan out this year. We don't know if it'll be the year after that, what it is, but he has to pan out. He has to be really good in order for this to be a good move, or else it's going to set them back a lot of time. The second round, though, the Niners, you guys got Aaron Banks out of Notre Dame, just helping out the offensive line. Again, it's a very weird offensive line, because you got guys like Trent Williams who are very much older, and then you got younger guys on the line as well. So it's kind of a balance of old and young. So you want to keep some of that youth movement there. The younger, the better, and the ability to learn from these guys as well. Trey Sermon in the third, I really like. I think Sermon's going to be a starting running back within next year. Moser obviously being almost 30. This is probably his one and only contract in the NFL that he's really going to get. I like Wayne Gallman a lot. I really hope Gallman has a good year for you guys, and he is able to stay on the roster. I think him and Sermon would be a good 1 and 2. But this is a very fun roster. I think Sermon's going to be able to step in with Lance next season and be the starting duo. Ambry Thomas out of Michigan at the 102, just helping out that defense. A lot of youth movement in that secondary as well. And then other than that, you guys got Jalen Moore, who's going to be depth at the tackle position. Lenore out of Oregon and Hufanga out of USC, and then Eli Mitchell as well in that 6th to help out the running back room. I don't know if Mitchell will make the roster just because of how many running backs are there, but it's not a bad draft. It's good for what you wanted because you wanted to get it, but the thing is, this draft right now, it's a solid draft, but if Lance doesn't pan out, this whole draft is a complete failure. The whole draft. It doesn't matter if Sermon becomes the next Zeke Elliott. This draft is a failure because that was a lot of capital to trade up to 3, and the thought is that Lance is the guy. It's a thought. We're going to take a couple years to really know what the answer is to this question of did the Niners get screwed over? And we'll see what the verdict is on that one. But right now, it's a big risk for a team that I think is so in a competitive state. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. That's pretty much most I can say about the Niners. It's a very decent draft. It was boring because we all knew they were going quarterback in the first round, and that was the whole process of the draft. So then we're going to go over to the next team, which is the Seahawks. And again, the Seahawks are a team that just don't really pick much. They got Dwayne Eskridge in the 2nd out of Western Michigan. They got Trey Brown in the 4th, and they got Stone Forsythe in the 6th. I actually do like Forsythe as a tackle, so hopefully he can pan out to be somebody, even if it's a rotational piece or somebody else. Trey Brown at Oklahoma, it's whatever. The main focal point here is Dwayne Eskridge, and I don't know, man. He's short. He's a small guy, 5'9", so he's comparable to what they already have on the team in Tyler Lockett. And when you look at what this team really needs, I think, in my opinion, is that middle of the pack guy. You have a speedy, deep threat guy in Tyler Lockett who really can run routes very sharp. You have a guy in DK who can't really run the route tree, but he's going to go over the top. You need a guy who can make those solid catches. It doesn't have to necessarily be a burner, but just can really be a possessional guy and just really get good spots. And I mean, Eskridge isn't bad, but it's a lot. He's a slot receiver, and it's hard to see why they liked him over other receivers in this draft. And the fact that they only had 3 picks, and this is the guy they came out with, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to judge a draft like this because it's so little. It's so little. 3 picks, 2, 4, and 6 round. It's a very hard process to do. But I think with the Seahawks, they're in this endless loop right now. And Seattle fans, stick with me if you're here. I think Seattle's in this endless loop of being good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to really go anywhere in the playoffs. And the reason I say that is because it's a constant loop for them of losing very talented players and replacing them, but not necessarily replacing them, if that makes sense. Right? Like you lose the Legion of Boom, right? Thomas is gone, Sherman's gone, Cam Chancellor retired, and you do get Jamal Adams a couple years later. Shaq Griffin comes up. Then you just lost Shaq Griffin in free agency, right? You look at on the offensive side, this offensive line has been abysmal for a decade at this point, and it's just like, when is it gonna be focused on? Obviously not now. It's round 6 is the best pick that they got for it. Chris Carson came back, which is a huge benefit for this team. I'm a huge Chris Carson fan. The fact that they let him into the open market and then signed him later on was crazy, because he should have had a contract before even hitting the open market. But I'm glad he was able to get back. But this offense is nice. Russell Wilson is always going to put up numbers. He's always going to do well. He usually falls off towards the end of the year. He starts off super hot. DK and Lockett, they're top 20 receivers in my opinion, and Carson is top 10, top 15 back in my opinion. It's a good team. It's a really good team. The defense, you have Bobby Wagner. It's just this team used to be so scary to go against, and now I just feel like you're not really necessarily scared against them. You just have to kind of scheme against Metcalf. And, especially last year watching the Giants beat them with Colt McCoy, as long as you have a solid defense against this team, it's going to be hard for them to win because they really are a team that's going to outscore you. And I don't know. Getting Eskridge should help, but how much better? This is my point. You spent a second-round pick on Eskridge, right? You didn't go with a DB to replace Shaq. You didn't go with a lineman. Obviously you did those things later in the draft, but you didn't do it at round 2. How much better is Eskridge going to be compared to whoever the top free agent on the market is right now? Right? Going into this year, what is the difference? Because unless you're planning for the far future, which I don't really know about, I just don't see a reason that Eskridge should have been the pick. Maybe you take a lineman there, and then in round 4 you take a receiver, and then a DB in 6, or I don't know. There's different ways you could have done it. I don't think receiver was really the need of the team, man. I really don't. Especially because I think that you can kind of plug and play a lot of people in there as that wide receiver 3 in this offense with Metcalf and Lockett being the focal point, and you'll be okay. We know how much Russ usually throws to the tight ends too, so a lot of tight end work is going to happen there. I just think that wide receiver 3 isn't as important as helping out the offensive line or replacing what Shaq Griffin's going to leave behind. So it's not necessarily a bad draft, but it's just nothing to really write home about. But that's my little Seahawks man, I guess. But for the Cardinals, it was a bad draft, man. It was a bad draft. I live in Arizona, if you guys didn't know. Steve Keim has had a job for a long time, and he's not really looked at as like a, Dave Gettleman gets a lot of the flack for, being like cringy or whatever it is. They think he's a bad general manager or whatever, but he's very good at drafting. I will defend Dave on that. No matter what you think about Dave, you cannot knock his drafting skills. He's drafted CMC, he's drafted Saquon, he drafted, why am I blanking? Who we drafted? We found Slayton later in the draft. Daniel Jones, he got, which is the verdict's out on that one. But Thomas was pretty solid last year. But also you get the guys in the later rounds like Darnay Holmes and Tate Crowder, Mr. Irrelevant, and all these guys. He's done good drafting. Sorry to get a little Giants right, but Keim has made a lot of mistakes, especially in the draft. The draft is usually where he does not shine, and not necessarily that he makes mistake. He made a mistake in this draft. It's just I just don't know if he knows what the right moves are. So he took Zaven Collins in the round 1, right? And besides being a very cringy phone call, which I know some people are like, oh, that's so cool. I was cringing completely listening to that phone call that they had with him. I don't get why you take Zaven Collins when you have Isaiah Simmons there. You drafted Isaiah Simmons to be this linebacker, He's a tall, fast linebacker, and then you drafted Zayvon Collins to basically be the same thing. So you're giving up on Simmons already? Is that the case? In the second round, you dropped Rondale Moore, which means the Isabella experiment's over, and you took Isabella over DK, So do we just forget that you took Isabella over DK? Do we forget that you're replacing him 2 years down the line? Are you already replacing Simmons? You drafted Hassan Reddick. He finally comes into play and shows that he's going to be a solid linebacker, and you let him hit the free agent market and sign with Carolina. Nkemdiche, you drafted him even though a lot of people said he's a big risk. He's got a lot of character issues, and he left the league pretty much right away, and he was cut, and it was just not a good sign. So I think Keim has made a lot of bad choices in the drafts. I think drafts are not his strong suit, and he's still able to kind of have control. When I look at the Cardinals here, there's a couple things that they should have done. Pick 16, right? Caleb Farley was still on the board. That's the easiest pick. The easiest pick the Cardinals could have made was taking Caleb Farley. You lose out on Patrick Peterson. He goes to the Vikings. He even goes back to his old college number, trying to get some youth movement back in him because he hasn't really had the best of years recently. You have, why am I blanking on his name, out of Washington from a year ago. Why am I blanking on Byron Murphy? You have Byron Murphy. You have Budda Baker in that secondary, but really, a lot of those, you want a number one corner, and Caleb Farley is a number one corner. He has injury risk. So Caleb Farley was the easy pick because you need DB help, and you're a team that's so good that you can afford to not have that DB help for a few games to make sure he's fully healthy. But besides the point, let's say, hey, Caleb Farley, back problems, everything, take him off the board. Take him off the board. We don't want him. Okay, cool. Now we're going over to the next position, which, okay, we're not going to take a corner. If you want Farley, maybe you take Newsome. Maybe Greg Newsome's the move. But let's say, we're not taking, if it's not Farley, we're going to trust Farley. We're not taking a corner, top 20. That's not Caleb Farley or the two that were already taken. You have James Conner on a 1-year deal. He's been hurt pretty much his whole career. His best year was that year that Le'Veon held out, and since then he's kind of been wishy-washy. The games that Benny Snell played and Samuels played looked like Connor was still in those games, to be honest. You have Chase Edmonds, who's really a scat back. He's going to be able to do a lot. Benjamin was a 7th-round pick, I think, last year, 6th or 7th-round pick. So maybe he'll make a roster spot. But Najee Harris and ETN were both on the board, and Najee fits the system better than anyone else. Now, the thing with I think the best teams in the league, what you can see is they have an all-around offense, right, and a solid defense. That's what really it is. Because in this day and age, it's such a passing NFL. It's completely understood. A lot of people say you shouldn't even take a running back in the first round, which is complete bullshit. But the fact is that it's a passing league now, and we know this. So, what do you do when your run game isn't worried about? When no one's worried about Chase Edmonds or James Conner really running the ball, they trust their front five to kind of handle that. Well, they're able to drop more DBs back in coverage. They're able to double team your best receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. So what happens when DeAndre Hopkins double teamed? You don't have a formidable tight end. You have solid number 2 and number 3 and number 4 options now because you have Rondale Moore as your 4, you have Kirk as your 3, you have AJ Green as that wide receiver 2. But what do you do when that's happening? It's a lot easier for guys to guard an old injured AJ Green. He wasn't hurt that much last year, but an old injury-prone at this point in his career, in my opinion, AJ Green. Christian Kirk, who is really solid. I won't say no ill will, but I think that he can be dealt with in single coverage. You're able to double team Hopkins, and you're still able to have 2 safeties in the back. What do you do in that situation? Not a lot, man. It's good to have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's able to run the ball, which is going to get you extra yards. It's an extra threat. But how much of an impact is Zayvon Collins going to make on the defense compared to how much of an impact that Najee Harris will make on the offense? Think about that for a second. Even if Zayvon Collins becomes the next Ryan Shazier, Bobby Wagner type linebacker, right? Then it's gonna be a great pick. Isaiah Simmons is as good as he is, great. How much of that is going to win you games compared to what having a running back that's going to be feared and electric can be? Because let's say you got Najee Harris here. You have a read option on Kyler and Najee. Who you taking? Because you let Kyler's got more speed than Najee does. But if you let Najee go, Najee's going to jump over you. He's going to juke out. He's going to do all these different things. It's a big situation. You took the Steelers running back, and the Steelers took a running back that should be on your team. So Zayvon Collins, I think he is a very solid linebacker. I think he's going to do very well at this level. You're mimicking the pick that you made last year in Isaiah Simmons, and it didn't work for Isaiah Simmons in the first year. So instead of giving up on him or literally drafting a player at his position to replace him, maybe try and progress Isaiah Simmons and teach him more about being a better linebacker, because he's really been just an all-around athlete in his time playing football. This last year was the first year he really had to think about being in one position and learning that position and staying in that role. Not playing linebacker and dropping back into safety mid-play. That's not something he really can do in this league. So I think that they messed up on the first-round pick. I think even without the phone call, it was just I think that they could have went other places. I just don't think linebacker was really the spot they needed. There was reports that if Zaven was taken, they were going to take Najee. Najee should have been the first option, in my opinion. Rondale Moore, again, great pick in the second round. I think Rondale's going to be solid. It's just an odd situation because you're giving up on Isabella 2 years in his career, which I'm completely fine with. I thought the pick wasn't worth it at the time, but it is what it is. You get Marco Wilson in the fourth round, who you hope can be a solid number 3-4 corner. Those corners in the fourth round, especially this year, looked pretty nice, so I think I'm not going to say anything bad about it. You get another linebacker out of Duke. Tay Gowan out of UCF is another corner. You get a safety in James Wiggins, and then in the late 7th, and again in the late 7th, Michael Manette out of Penn State, who's a center. In reality, you're going to have one guy that's going to be a starter, and it's going to be Zaven Collins. And how is that going to stunt the growth of Simmons? Because you can't. I just don't see a way you're running Collins, Simmons, and Hicks all on one defensive linebacking front. I just don't see a way you do it. I think they're all interior linemen, in my opinion. I mean, Zaven can definitely be on the edge, but why would you need an edge rusher if you have Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt? So it's just a lot of confusion on that one for me. And I mean, maybe if you're a deeper Cardinals fan, because although I live in Arizona, I'm not the deepest Cardinal fan. Maybe you can explain it to me. Maybe you can explain it to me. I just I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't think it. Last but not least is the Rams. The Rams had a lot more picks than they usually have. Just again, not any first rounders. But they took Tutu Atwell out of Louisville, and I don't know. He's not bad. He's not bad. That's not what I want to say. But again, it's the same thing. I get you have Stafford now, but when you have Higbee at tight end, right? They might still have Everett. I'm not sure, but you have Kupp. You have Woods. You drafted Van Jefferson last year in the second round. Why draft another second round wide receiver? I'm not sure if they still have Josh Reynolds. I'm pretty sure they don't, but I'm 99% sure that they don't. But Van Jefferson, I thought, was a great pick for them last year. Again, it's just another situation where why would you take a position that you have? I'd go offensive line if I was them. You look at the age on some of the linemen and just how the line has been inconsistent the past couple of years. I think that's a big spot. You can even look at a goddamn quarterback at that point, because Stafford, even though you traded for him, he's a lot older and he's dealt with some injuries in his career. He's been a lot healthier in recent times, but running back situation I like Cam Akers a lot. I really hope that he progresses to be a solid running back. And then you go to the defensive side. I mean, that defensive line is really solid. But you've seen a lot of these guys kind of move around off of the team. LaMarcus Joyner was on the team, he was gone. John Johnson was on the team, he's gone. Jalen Ramsey's still there, obviously, but Talib is retired. There's just a lot of Peters is obviously gone. There's a lot of great talent that's been moved in and out of this defense. I think that the secondary is pretty solid. I just don't know if receiver was a move, especially when Tutu Atwell was there, unless they see something in him that we don't. I don't know, man. I don't know. You look at the rest of their draft, Ernest Jones in the third is the linebacker. I think it's a solid pick. Hopefully he can be some depth pieces. But then after that, it just seems like a lot of let's throw it to the wall and see if it sticks, Bobby Brown is D tackle. Cool. Robert Rochelle is corner out of Central Arkansas. Will probably be a good fourth or fifth corner. Jacob Harris, tight end at UCF, just to be pretty much a backup, a blocker. Ernest Brown, not really going to do much, probably, in my opinion, out of Northwestern. In the seventh round, you take a running back in Funk, who maybe can crack a special teams unit. Same with Skronik out of Notre Dame, and then Chris Garrett out of Concordia St. Paul, man. It's just like I don't know. It's just they had a lot more picks. And it just this is a very boring division with the draft, to say the least. And I don't really think anyone really won this draft. I mean, I guess it would be the Niners, but again, if Trey Lance doesn't pan out, it's really not that great of a draft. But I think Starman made a good pick. But in reality, this division was a very weird draft. I know this was probably more of a boring podcast to listen to. And in reality, it's more of a confusing thing for me because just a lot of the moves were just so questionable and just, I don't know. It's just not really what I was looking for as if I was the GM. But maybe you guys can convince me. Again, like I've said in all these videos, if you're a fan of these teams, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. I want to know your opinion because I do want these to make sense. I don't want to be like I don't think this is a good thing because it doesn't make me any pride. You know, the last video you watched the NFC East, I was hammering everybody. I was saying you guys are like this was a amazing draft for the Eagles, for the Cowboys, the Giants, the Washington football team. Like it's like. I don't know. It's such a crazy thing. I think this draft. I think the biggest thing about this draft, and I'll end it after this, is I think we're gonna see a lot more deeper talent in this draft. A lot of guys drafted day 3 that are gonna be better than day 1 picks or day 2 picks because of the opt-outs, because of COVID, because of all this different stuff. It's gonna be a lot of oddities in this draft. So a lot of these picks that might seem crappy might end up being a lot better. But that's kind of all I can say about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That's pretty much it. I still got to figure out what I need to figure out what the hell this name is going to be for this podcast. But if you guys do enjoy, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, share with your friends, all that kind of crap. If you didn't enjoy, just refresh the page. Let me know what you think a second time. And without further ado, that's it for me, guys. Appreciate you guys for watching or listening again on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys in the next one.